the last Hot 10 of the new year, and you knew it was going to be a spicy one. We're going to get to your Hot 10 hottest books in the world list like we do every single week. But before we do that, Jem, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. We got to talk about what I think is the biggest breaking news to have ever happened in the collectible market space.
Yeah, that's right. We got to talk about an elaborate scam that has been uncovered by the comic book community, a scam that can impact the community as a whole and this very video.
Timestamp if you want to skip the next couple minutes and get right back into your weekly video we do for you. But let's get into it. The reholder system that CGC has is flawed. And it was uncovered in the last 7 days that a seller for what could be longer than a year has been able to take advantage of this flaw and reholder comic books fraudulently and sold them in the aftermarket, tainting the certified guarantee that CGC provides.
Yeah, this seller has been able to take books and reholder them for a higher grade, and in some cases, an extremely rare version of that book, like a Newsstand or a Mark Jewelers, and in other cases, take a book like Hulk 181 that was missing the Marvel value stamp, a qualified green label, and getting it reholdered as Universal Blue.
There's a lot of speculation on how this was accomplished, but the important thing is that it did happen. We can see old books and new books and see that they were swapped. This raises a lot of questions. Is this the only account that was committing this fraud? Are there more than one? How long has this been going on? What books are impacted? Is there a list of them? We reached out to CGC. We got a response from Matt Nelson, CEO, and he said that they're actively investigating it, but there was nothing new they can provide. So that's a good sign. You'd expect that there's likely police reports and insurance claims and an internal investigation that needs to happen. And we'll probably get information in coming weeks. We need information.
Now, I'd like to think on this channel, we've done a pretty good job of identifying outliers. Sometimes we don't even put a number on the list if it looks way out of the norm, or sometimes we'll just put an asterisk by it. And I think we're gonna have to just do that a little bit more moving forward, especially when it comes to those ghost comics.
This is a crazy story, and if you want to follow what's going on, I recommend the channels that I'm getting my information from. We have Swagglehaus doing a bunch of content on this developing story. Shout out to the 99 Newsstand for breaking this story. You can find him on Instagram. We have West Coast Davengers on YouTube. Shout out Comic Tim. I'll put links in the descriptions to all their videos. One True Nerd King, Rage Theo on Comics and Chaos covered this with the 99. And Neo Cards and Comics, who isn't even part of the comic community per se, is also covering this because this has ramifications that could lead to the card market, the coin market, and anything that CGC and the parent company actually grade.
We're not going to add any more value than those channels already have, so make sure to check them out, and when CGC does make an announcement, we'll make sure to address it here.
The hottest comic books in the world. Hit the like and subscribe. We're here every single week covering the health of the comic book marketplace. And at the list at number 10, we have a John Romita Sr. classic, a monster Silver Age key. We have Amazing Spider-Man issue number 50. This is the first appearance of Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin.
And it makes sense that we're seeing this on the list after the 2 Echo trailers, which basically makes the show look like a Kingpin show. We got a CGC 3.0 up 5% over its 12-month average. The 4.0 and 5.0 are both up 2%, and the 8.0 just sold for $2,800. That's 8% up.
This book hit $66,000 back in 2021. The last sale, June of this year, was $33,600. The book is down royally, but it's such a respected key that any buzz around the Kingpin is going to move the needle on the lower grade copies. We're going to be seeing the narratives from Hawkeye Season 1, Echo, Daredevil Born Again, and Spider-Man 4 all come together. And Echo Season 1 will likely just be a stepping stone to further Kingpin narratives. January 10th, all the episodes are going to be dropping on Disney+. Can't wait to see what they have in store for us.
Which brings us to number 9 on the list, the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to comic book related movies. We got the James Gunn DC Universe with Brave and Bold 57, the first appearance of Metamorpho.
Anthony Carrigan from Barry is going to be portraying this character, which has provided so much optimism on such a strange character. But don't forget, James Gunn is really good at taking the unique and making them stars. The 5.0 is up 10%. The 7.5 is up 7%. The 8.0 sold for $599. That's an increase of 9% when you compare that sale to the recent 12-month average.
And we've got a record-breaking sale for a CGC 9.0, last selling for $550 back in 2020, up now 28%, selling for $702.
The highest graded sale that we've reported on all year for this book was a 9.2. There's only 26 higher graded copies in existence. It's a very tough book in high grade. And it sold this past July for a record-breaking $1,780. And I would say, of all the books on this list, this was probably in the top 3 for most requested books on the con floor, seeing them on the walls, in the bins. People were hunting for Metamorpho, and they were hunting for all keys associated with this character. And the best way to keep up on all key books is to download the best comic app in existence. It's called Key Collector Comics. It's available for both Androids and iPhones. You support the show and get access to a free 2-week subscription of the app by using code TOM101. Number 8 on the list is the first appearance of the Prowler with ASM issue number 78. This book came out in 1969, and it's the first appearance of Hobie Brown. This is one of the strongest performing books all year, and it's so cool to see the impact of the animated film, which is officially back in production.
And I would go out on a limb and say Across the Spider-Verse was probably the best comic book related movie that we had in 2023, so it makes sense that we continue to see this book make the list. A 4.5 sold for $140, 26% above average. The 8.5 is up 25%, the 9.2 is up 58%, and the 9.4 sold for $1,350. That's 5% above average.
It's been 6 months since this movie debuted, and to give you a perspective about how strong performing this book is, between November and early January, we have been seeing some of the lowest reported sales in the entire year. Year-long lows, because this is when people typically don't spend as much money on comics. They got the holiday season, the economy isn't great, but this book, despite that information, has reported year-long highs in 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, and 9.8, all in the last couple months. This is an anomaly because this book is being speculated on heavily.
Moving on to number 7 on the list. It was on the Hot 10 2 weeks ago while I was out of town. Ryan covered it, but we have Giant Size X-Men number 1, the first appearance of the new X-Men team.
This is a major key for X-Men collectors and Bronze Age key collectors. And in a 9.8, we typically see it sell between 8 to 12 times a year, except for this year. It's only sold 4 times. The 4th time happened 2 weeks ago when we reported on it last. That means that members are holding because the prices are getting so low. And with that said, a lot of lower grade copies are indeed selling because it's beginning to get so competitive. The 3.0 is up 4%. The 8.5, 2 copies outsold the recent 12-month average for an increase of 2%. The 9.0 is up 4%, and 2 copies outsold that average. And the 9.2, someone paid $6,079 for an increase of 5%. And there's not a whole lot of new X-Men news outside of like Deadpool 3, but we definitely are hearing a lot about X-Men 97.
I'm looking forward to the animated series. The action figures are already out in the wild, and Marvel Comics did announce the end of the Krakoa era. The Jonathan Hickman Hoxpox era is coming to an end, and the new era is X-Men From the Ashes.
Can you believe it? It's been 5 years since the start of House of X. What a legendary run, and I'm excited to see where Marvel's taken us in 2024. There's a lot of X-Men hype, and we need a good shakeup.
And speaking of shakeups, Kevin Feige has recently come out saying that they would never undermine Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in Endgame by bringing Iron Man back to the MCU.
Is he lying? He's done it before. At the list at number 6, Iron Man number 1. This is the first ongoing title series featuring Iron Man. It's a classic, tough to secure and high-grade Bronze Age key. And we have a slew of sales to report on because 1, everyone needs to own an Iron Man 1. Like, this is a badass book. But 2, I think people are like, still doing some wishful thinking, hoping that as the MCU continues in the direction they're going, that they may change directions and rehash some of the success they've had in the past, specifically Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man.
I mean, we've seen them try to capture some of that magic in the trailers leading up to the Marvels, so I wouldn't put it past them to try to bring these characters back to the movies. But also, 2023 has been the year of first solo series rather than first appearances, if you ask me. The 3.0, selling for $420, puts it 6% above its 12-month average. The 4.5, staying around that average, selling for $475. The 5.0 is up 3%, and the 8.0 is up 2%.
You can get an intro copy of this book at a 1.5 for $250. Now, we are halfway through the list, but we are nowhere near the end of this video. You need to stay tuned to the very end because as it is the last video of 2023 as it pertains to the Hot 10, we have Q4 rankings. We've compiled the last quarter's worth of data and stacked the books up so that you can get a really good understanding on what is definitively the hottest books in Q4.
Will number 5 make the list? We've talked about it a few times. It's Uncanny X-Men issue 130, the first appearance of Dazzler.
Dude, you know it made the list, but you know what? It may not make the list soon. I mean, we're hearing rumors that not only is Taylor Swift not going to be Dazzler, we're hearing that she may be Lady Deadpool. But we're also hearing rumors that she may not be any hero at all, and she may be portraying herself. And if that happens, this could be the worst spec book of 2023.
If she doesn't show up in this movie, I would expect a crash of this book, one like we've never seen before. We still have a ton of sales to report on this week, however. A lot of newsstands. The Newsstand 4.0 up 19%. The Newsstand 7.5 is up 16%. The Newsstand 8.0 sold for $250, which is 69% higher than its 12-month average.
The Direct 9.2 sold for $316, an increase of 25%. The Newsstand 9.4 is up 26%, and someone paid $599 for a CGC 9.6. That's an increase of 40%. Like Metamorpho, Dazzler was all the rage at conventions this year. Every single dealer had their first solo series out, various X-Men appearances, and you know if they had an Uncanny 130, it was on their wall.
And we had a record-breaking sale in a CGC 6.5. It last sold for $135 in 2022, and it's up 4% now, selling for $140.
This Dazzler speculation goes beyond comic books. It has broken into the mainstream. We have the Hollywood Reporter talking about a recent produced biographical comic book by Tidal Wave Productions. It's called Female Force Taylor Swift, and it's a comic book about Taylor Swift, and they even made a Dazzler variant in tribute to the speculation that's happening.
It seems like a book can be hot with zero hype. That's probably the best time to buy it. Case in point, number 4 on the list, we have Star Wars issue number 1.
This is some of the things that Star Wars fans are looking forward to. All coming out in 2024 with no official release date. Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte, Bad Batch Season 3, Tales of the Jedi Season 2, the Grand Theft Auto looking video game Star Wars Outlaws. There's a lot of things going for Star Wars in 2024, but we don't know when, and this book is hot as hell, and I've hypothesized that it's because of the year-end holiday season. This is one of the best books that you can grab for a loved one that's affordable because it's just an awesome comic. It's Star Wars 1, baby.
We got the reprint in a 7.0 selling for $150, 58% above average. Then the regular edition 7.0 up 12%. The 7.5 is up 25%. The 8.0 is up 16%. The CGC 8.5 sold for $411, 41% above its average. The 9.0 is up 19%, and the 9.6 coming in at $1,375, an increase of 46%.
If you want to support the show directly, we've been doing this video every single week without skipping a beat for over 3 years. Jem, it's going on 4 years. Can you believe it?
Yeah, we're right at about the 3.5-year mark. Time sure does fly by. How long have you guys been doing the mail call?
Our comic book subscription service where our community helps support the show directly. We're going on 6 years, and we are so grateful. And we try to make the best comic books for the comic fam. And if you want to support what we do, go to comictom101.com and join our mystery box. 4 to 5 comics gets delivered to you every single month for only $34.99, and a couple of which are guaranteed 1 per box. And this month, we brought back to press issue number 121 of Batman, the first appearance of Mr. Freeze, by former art director of God of War and now Netflix art director Raph Grassetti.
You guys also did your first variant with my boy John Jiang for that Spider-Gwen cover. Very nice.
Link in the description to support this show, and let's chat about Wolverine number 1 at the list at number 3. I suspect that this is going to be on our Q4 rankings, Jem.
Well, it was number 1 for Q3, so we'll see if it defends its title. Nothing new on the Deadpool 3 front since all of the leaks and fake leaks that have come out, but still a ton of sales. The 9.2 up 6%. The Newsstand 9.2 is up 21%. The 9.4 sold for $200, which is 6% higher than its 12-month average. And then we have the Newsstand 9.4, which sold for $260 for an increase of 8%.
The 9.6 Direct sold above its 12-month average 3 different times this week, the highest being for 310 for an increase of 17%. The Newsstand 9.6 clocked in a sale at $698 for an increase of 4%.
And then we got a CGC 9.8 selling for $698, 4% above its 12-month average. But hold on, we have a record breaker as well. This is for a Newsstand 6.5, which went for $115 last year, up 9%, now selling for $125.
This book has ranked on the HOT10 29 different times this past year. That's a rate of 56%. It's clearly one of the hottest in the world, whether it be because of Hugh Jackman reprising his role, being seen in the classic yellow costume next to Deadpool, the various spec on just Wolverines in general, the incorporation of the mutants into the greater MCU, the leaks on the video game, like the list goes on. And then you also have a Frank Miller cover to boot.
And let's not forget about that census count. As we've been tracking it every single week, there have been 99 more slabs added to the census since this book made the Hot 10 at number 2 just last week, bringing that total up to 22,162, which includes 23 more 9.8s.
There's a lot of reasons why the comic book marketplace has adjusted this last year. We've seen some big price dips for good reason. But one of the bigger reasons that doesn't get discussed enough is the sheer quantity of books being graded. The supply has gone up massively. And members are purchasing the books, but they're not purchasing them at a rate like they used to, where the supply was at risk of being met. Now, it is being met now, and these books are definitely maintaining, if not going down in price. It's a great time to get into comic books, and it's a great time to subscribe to the channel because I think we're the only ones in the community tracking the changes of the census count like we're doing every single week.
And the Wolverine hype doesn't stop there. Coming in at number 2, we have a Todd McFarlane classic, Incredible Hulk issue 340.
This has been voted regularly as one of the favorite covers of the community of all time. And whether it be McFarlane, Hulk, or Keys in general, since we chatted about this book last under 2 months ago, there's been an increase of 16 copies added to the census at a 9.8 alone. That's a lot more supply on a high-demand book, and the sales are showing that members are picking it up.
The CGC 5.5 sold for $103, an increase of 17%. The 7.5 is up 8%. The Newsstand 7.0 sold for $150 for an increase of 16%.
The A5 sold for $165. That's an increase of 2%. The 9.0 Direct sold for $210, an increase of 9%. The 9.0 Newsstand sold for $276, an increase of 32%. Notice the price differences between that barcode and lack of barcode. The 9.4 Direct sold for $272 for an increase of 13%, and the Newsstand 9.4 sold for $320. That's an increase of 5%. And then we have a record-breaking 9.8 Newsstand sale. Or do we?
Yeah, this is one of those books that has an asterisk next to it. Was it a real CGC 9.8 Newsstand? That's part of the problem. However, this is still a real sale. The record setter was for $4,000 from back in 2021, and this all-new record-breaking sale comes in at over $600 higher, $46.50 for an increase of 16%.
This is really tough because there is a high likelihood that this book may be fraudulent. And this isn't the only one. We're also seeing Secret Wars 8 on this list. We're seeing ASM 252 on this list. We're seeing issue 238 of Spider-Man, first appearance of Hobgoblin, also on this list of books that potentially were tainted as it pertains to high-end, scarce collectibles. So yes, a member was willing to pay $46.50 for this book, and that stands to be true. But whether or not that buyer will keep the book or return it is the question, and the sale may not actually exist. And we have no way to follow up on this. What we can say is that officially, and especially until we hear CGC's statement, you have to buy the book, not just the grade. If a 9.8 doesn't look like a 9.8, it's too big of a risk. You gotta use buyer protection.
All right, guys, now for the hottest comic book in the world. For the second week in a row, we have Godzilla, issue number 1, the first Godzilla comic book published for the US market.
This book is performing well across so many grades. We're just going to skip the lower grades and take you right to the 9.0. That's up 40%. The 9.2 up 45%. 4 different 9.4 copies outsold the recent 12-month average, the highest being for $199 for an increase of 44%. And 4 9.6s did the same, the highest being $243 for an increase of 37%. The 9.8 clocked in a sale at $422. That's an increase of 2%, but it's been steadily climbing ever since the debut of Godzilla -1, my favorite film of the year.
The movie doing so well that they're even re-releasing it in black and white overseas in Japan in honor of the original film.
It's on a short list for getting an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and if that nomination happens, it would be the first time that Godzilla has ever been nominated for an award of that caliber, which is kind of shocking to think about.
And even though we reported on a $422 high, since this list came out, we have seen a sale of $482, so keep an eye out for Godzilla 1 on next week's Hot 10.
The data is in. We have the Q4 rankings, the hottest books in the world. This is between October and December, and at the list at number 10, we have ASM 361, the first appearance of Carnage, selling so damn cheap that it's ranked 4 different times in the last quarter.
Number 9, we have Avengers 57, the first appearance of Vision, which also has 4 appearances, but higher rankings.
That even ranked at number 1 at one point because of how affordable this high-end key has gotten. We also have ASM 210 at the list at number 8. Despite the Madam Web trailer, there are a lot of sales and a lot of members still purchasing her first appearance.
Moving on to number 7, we have Conan issue number 1 with 5 appearances on the Hot 10.
The highest ranking this comic received was 4th place, and it's likely because of Red Sonja spec. How have we not seen the trailer from San Diego? I digress, because number 6 on the list is Spawn number 1. Blumhouse Productions is saying that they're gonna do what is seemingly been an impossible task over the last couple decades and bring Spawn to the big screen.
With 5 appearances, we were hearing about this every single month since Todd McFarlane and Blumhouse broke the news. Coming in at 5th place, a book we just talked about, Godzilla number 1 with 5 appearances as well.
Number 1 on the list this week, this book is likely going to be ranking on the Q1 rankings. Hit the subscribe button because I think Godzilla is here to stay. But what about G.I. Joe? I mean, this is at 4th place. It ranks 6 different times, but that's got to be because of Skybound, Duke 1, Cobra Commander, ties with Transformers and Void Rivals, sprinkle a little Robert Kirkman. Will it still hold up through Q1? That's the question.
Coming in at number 3, we have Star Wars issue number 1 with 6 appearances, and you know it made number 1 one of these weeks.
Star Wars Life Day did happen in Q4. A lot of people picking up Star Wars 1. And then number 2 on the list, oh my gosh, it was dethroned. Wolverine number 1, coming in 10 different times this past quarter.
So you know the number 1 book for Q4 was Uncanny X-Men 130, the first appearance of Dazzler with 10 appearances and 6 times making number 1.
6 different times at number 1. Hot damn. What do you think about all these comics, all this data in the comment section below? What do you think about all of the situation regarding the CGC? Do you have any questions for them? Let them know in the comment section too. And have a happy new year, as always.
Geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
We'll see you in 2024.